Okay, episode 363 of Global from Asia, talking about the Canton Fair and a little bit of my journey of 7 days in the mountain temple. Aubrey, did you miss me?
Yes, Mike. We did
All right,
miss
you
you,
did
of
great. You did
course.
great when I wasn't here. So, all right, everybody, let's tune in.
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight up, actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
So, Aubrey, you survived without me for a week. How was it?
Gratefully, I did okay. The studio launch and the event went well so far, thanks to the help of our other members.
Yeah, so just a little update. I don't think we've shared much on this podcast. Some people might have seen or heard on the maybe social media or emails, but I took a 7 day silent retreat in a Buddhist temple mountain in Shenzhen, about not so far from where I am here in downtown, but about a half hour, 45 minutes by car from where I am. And it was a little bit short notice, but I told Aubrey, I know you're still new here and doing great, but so you haven't seen too much, but I haven't really taken a day off, I think, in years, multiple years. So so it was much needed, but a little bit short notice, but the team did great. And there was a whole bunch of our team in Shadstone and GFA that did a member birthday kind of call last week. How was that?
Yes, so again, congrats for your well-deserved break. So last week, yeah, I think last week we did great. We discovered that the community is enjoying with us. They shared something that might be useful for us to improve our services as well. And also, there are three lucky winners for your raffle.
The swag pack. Yeah, yeah. So
Yes.
we gave, yeah, I'm gonna write a personal little note for them too, because I know them in our community, and give them some GFA swag shirts and some other giveaways. We're gonna start to do more of that. It's the advantage of being here in China is we can make so much so fast. So I'm gonna try that out and get. I think we won't share the names, but there were some really regular people in our community, so it was great to have them there. And I read your report. I think you shared it in the members forum at GFA VIP, but people are really supportive. I think one big update is we're going to try to get more of our GFA VIP members involved in the podcast, right? I think some of them are interested to do some interviews and host some shows.
As we mentioned that in that event, and thankfully they are excited or they're willing to join us on this podcast. I'm
Yeah,
really looking forward to that too.
I know, and that's why I'm happy to have you and helping out with the community management, because it'll be a little bit extra coordination, but we're going to have some of our members hosting some shows. So hopefully, maybe I don't want to promise too much, but maybe we can go back to weekly. Maybe if we once we get the flow, and have more great guests, because we have so many guests that want to come on our show and great content to share about cross-border trade and business and e-commerce. So we will be working on that, and it's a pretty big update. And then for deal flow, I think you're working on one or two cases right now. Of course, we can't share too much, but and I'm back from Temple, so I'm going to be following up some of that. But it's great to have your help, Aubrey.
Yes, sure, Mike. Again, for the listeners or the viewers, if they want to sell their businesses, I guess we can help them. They just need to visit our site at globalfromasia.com/broker. So
Yeah,
I'm sure we're happy to help them sell their business.
yeah, we would love to. Of course, we're a little bit focused on e-commerce, and of course, FBA is the hot one for our on the buy side. But we'd love to just talk to them and get to know them. And of course, in our general membership, Aubrey and I are just starting to talk about it. But another development during my mountain trip is we're working on a new, not just a course, but a program, but a whole new model of e-commerce. And I can't share too much right now, but we are just starting, and stay tuned for some more updates on that. I'm really excited about it.
Yes, I read the document and I'm so excited for it too, Mike.
Nice. Yeah, it'll be a 2022 launch, but maybe with some, of course, some special offers before the end of the year. So stay tuned for anyone interested in a new way of e-commerce. All right, now let's talk about this week's show. It's a fun one. Actually, I'll be honest, Chris Davey is somebody you should know, Aubrey and others in the community. I'm sure a lot of listeners know him. He's an Amazon seller many, many years. Met him. I think he shared on my Facebook when we first connected as Facebook friends, but he's been on our show at Global from Asia before, at least once or twice, and he's been to many of our events. He also has his own events and community at FBA for You for Canton Fair meetups. So of course it makes sense to have him on the show about the Canton Fair. And the Canton Fair happened for the first time since COVID started just this past October. And he invited me and he had a small meetup, and I was going to go, Aubrey, and those listening, but I had to get a COVID test within 48 hours. And there's some other policies and paperwork. And I'll be honest, I'm recovering from burnout. That's why I went to the temple. So I was like, sorry, Chris, man, I really want to go and network and see some trade show booths, but I didn't make it. So Chris is going to give us some insights about how Canton Fair, and he also went to another trade show, have been post-COVID in this new normal, the new COVID world. So we will tune in. And it was actually meant to just be a segment. Chris was like, I don't think there's that much to talk about, and it was going to be a segment. But I think it's a pretty long discussion that is, I think, worthy of its own episode. So let's do this. A URL for today's show: globalfromasia.com/COVID Canton, one word. All right, everybody. So let's tune in. Let's listen to Chris. It's been a while, I think, Chris. When was the last time? You've been on the show a couple of times at least, but it's been quite a while. We'll link him up on the show notes. But it was always a pleasure to have our friend Chris Davey from FBA for You, the founder there, and Canton Fair meetups, and always keeping the community here connected. I've always appreciated it. Chris, how are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really. I mean, I think I was on your podcast last night I can't remember, it was like February 2017 or 18. It's quite a while back,
probably. Like time is flying. I guess we're super, I know you're super busy. We're also busy now, and the world has changed since then, to say the least. So I guess, we'll talk about the fair, the trade shows up in a bit, but maybe it would be nice just to hear what I will link to the links, but you're a established seller, 7-figure, maybe 8-figure by now, growing seller, and soon enough, I'm sure. I know we've been chatting, but I know you've been really, really just doubling down, right? I mean, adding new products, growing a team. You want to give us a little update what you've been up to before we jump into the fairs?
Yeah, sure. There's a kind of a funny story actually, which was I was sitting at my desk job back in 2014, and I sent an email to Michael because I was listening to his podcast and said, "Hey, do you know any Amazon sellers in China, like foreigners, that you can get on your podcast? Because I want to start up an Amazon business, but there's nobody I know in China." And Michael was like, wrote back to me after about 3 or 4 months. Well, he wrote back to me straight away, but 3 or 4 months later, he said he was like struggling to get anyone to appear on the show, and I'm like, "Oh, don't worry, my product's going to be launching shit soon." And he was like, "Great, you can come on the show." Yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up on the show the first time.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, especially back then, people didn't, especially a lot of sellers. There's even I did the vlog at one of your Canton Fair meetups, and I was asking people what's your ASIN, as a joke. But a lot of sellers are so secretive and they don't want to share too much, which I do understand. But so
yeah. I kind of get that, but on the other hand, I kind of don't get it in China because all the sellers like sat up right next door to each other. Yeah. There's like these huge like offices like full of e-commerce sellers, and we actually went to one a few weeks back, and they just got all these like products just sitting outside with their brand names on and stuff like that. It's like I think foreign sellers would be scared to do that, and it's like kind of weird. I still don't exactly get why they do that, but. Yeah. So anyway, what have I been doing? Working too hard, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, basically like pandemic came and, I just got back into China just before the border shut. And I just been like working my ass off, like designing lots of stuff and just like designing far too many things. So just like all of this stuff started hitting all at the same time, like 40 products needing, copy and photos and PPC and everything like that, and it just like swamped me and sunk me pretty much, so that's kind of what I've been doing. And now I've been like, oh, I'm not going to develop any new products. I need to get all these ones that I've done, get them out first and get them set up properly. So I've still got a whiteboard full of products, but I'm trying to avoid doing them. And I even went to Canton Fair.
Yeah.
And Cindy was saying to me, like, oh, this is cool. How about this? And I'm like, no, I'm not really interested in anything. She's like, why did we come then? I'm like, I just want to get a feel for the market, you know? But I don't want to actually buy anything.
I mean, even me, I know you had reached out asking if I was going to go, and I really wanted to go, but man, no, the I guess that's a good opening for the content of discussion is just to get into the show, right? Like even you're in Shenzhen. I got back down to Shenzhen a couple months ago from the north. Even to come from within, we're already in China, right? We made it before the borders closed, like you said, and you're in. But even within China, it was hard to get in, right?
Yeah, even in the same province now. So they basically, for Canton Fair, they brought in a load of new rules. Yeah, so for Guangzhou, sorry. So for that city during Canton Fair, they implemented new rules. Yeah, which was you couldn't come from another city unless you had a COVID test in the last 48 hours, and COVID tests only last 48 hours. So this kind of meant when you needed a COVID test to like check in at the hotel, although we did find that, if you weren't staying right next to Canton, it was a lot easier. But then the first day you go to Canton Fair, you're already in the second 24 period of your COVID test. And while you're there, you need to take another COVID test so you could go there the next day.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I think you and some others were telling me so I'll just kind of recap. So yeah, you had told me if you want to go, you got to get COVID tests within 48 hours, which you just said. And then while you're there, you have to also get it. Like I heard there was a line at the fair to get a COVID test. Is that, I don't know. Somebody said there's even a queue you could go for a test or somewhere near it or something like that. I don't know.
No, they had COVID tests operating all over the fair. Yeah. Like outside the fair, inside the fair, there was no difficulty getting a COVID test. So for us to get the one to go to Guangzhou in the first place, we needed to pay like $10, I guess, like 60 yuan. But once we were at the fair, they're basically like free because they do it in a different way. They do like 10 people at a time rather than a single test. So when you're at the fair, I mean, for us, maybe 5 or 10 minutes queue to get a COVID test. It was more problems for some of my friends kind of turned up and their COVID test, it had to be a Guangdong COVID test. So it had to be done in this province. So they turned up from Beijing with a COVID test in the last 48 hours. And they're like, oh, no, that's not acceptable. It needs to be a Guangdong one.
Unbelievable, man.
So they turned out at Canton Fair and they wouldn't let them in because the Beijing one and the Guangdong one don't communicate with each other or something like that. Crazy. So they had to do another one. And it's basically like, you get the results within 6 hours. So their first day was written off because they couldn't get in. Anyway, we had actually organised so that we had everything we needed. So we just turned up there. The big problem we had was since the last time we went, our passport number had changed. Yeah. And we were really struggling to find where to change this passport number because in the back end of WeChat, this Canton Fair mini program was linked to the Guangdong code mini program, and they were cross-checking the passports and saying they don't match.
Oh no, so annoying. I know
it was no problem. It took like 10 minutes once we found it, but the problem was finding anyone who knew where the hell to do it. Yeah, just like
that's unbelievable. So, yeah, I think. Because I also have a new passport since the last time. So when you reminded me of that, I was like, man, I don't have a COVID test. I guess it's not that hard to get one. But then I kind of escaped going, unfortunately. But so besides, so you get there, you got the test, you got the passport update, you get inside. It's normal. I mean, you've been there many years in the past. It's normal, the same.
So the way they've done it this time was it's normally 3 phases. So it's normally like 5 days on, 5 days off, 5 days on, 5 days off, 5 days on, 5 days off. And each phase will be like very specific and they generally don't change it. So, but this time there was only 5 days of Canton Fair. It was completely full, but they basically combined the whole 3 phases into one phase. I don't know how the suppliers got picked, who couldn't attend. But it was completely full, and I think they made a really good job of it, to tell the truth. As far as buyers go, the majority of the buyers obviously were Chinese.
Yeah.
So they changed the rules here. So like there's a few different options, but like Cindy, for instance, she was called a foreign buying agent. And so she was basically like, she actually came in with me under my badge. So as a foreigner, you can bring 2 people in. And normally it's like $50 a day for them people.
I remember
and the badge only lasts 1 day. But now it was $15 for the whole show. So they definitely wanted to keep people, they wanted to keep it busy.
Okay.
So they were making it easier. I never noticed this before, but one of the stands told us, which is, you got a strap around your neck. These straps are different colors, and these different colors mean different things. So when we went to one stand, we were there about lunchtime, and she was basically saying like, oh, we were the first people she'd seen with the blue straps, which is basically like means we're representing a foreign company, not a Chinese company.
Oh, wow.
So
more valuable.
So that was lunchtime. It was, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe, but maybe not. It's like we experienced some weird things there as well. Like, there was one stand we went to, and that stand was actually seemed to be a foreign company, maybe like a Chinese-based foreign company, but there was foreigners who seemed to be the bosses. And very strangely, they didn't want to talk to us. They had a big, like, huge stand there, yeah? And we were, like, trying to talk to them, and we didn't have a business card. And they were like, oh, basically, if we didn't have a business card, then they weren't willing to talk to us. It's like, who carries business cards in China,
That is...
So we had some problem there.
Okay.
But all in all, the show was full size, like, show, but only over 5 days. And it was reasonably good. I mean, I was pretty happy, and the people I went with were pretty happy, apart from a bit of a pain in the ass to get in and needing to do multiple COVID tests. The show was pretty good. But then 2 or 3 days later was the Shenzhen gift show.
Yeah, let me hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So normally I've been to that one like 4 or 5 years ago, a couple of times.
I went to that. Yeah, I think I went to that one. It was like, used to be downtown, I remember, or somewhere in the city center, if I remember.
Yeah, it was in Futian. Yeah.
Futian.
In the exhibition center in Futian. Or it's not that, it's very like Chinese local. It's selling like, dried meats and stuff like this. It's almost similar to if you've ever been to the Chinese New Year sort of markets where people go there and buy like some dried food and, sort of luxury food. There's a lot of this going on in the middle, like somebody trying to sell you a handbag. And this was before, right? So I wasn't really expecting much of it. And then they moved it to the new exhibition center, which I didn't realize until I posted on Facebook the other day. I knew it was big. It's the world's biggest exhibition center. So it's bigger than Canton Fair.
Wow.
It's got 20 halls, and it's really big. It's really, really big. I don't know if you may have seen it if you've driven past it. It's like next to the airport.
Yeah, I remember. I was going to say, as you take the highway to the airport, you see this massive, unending like expo center. Yeah, I think I've seen it from afar. Yeah, from the highway, but it's definitely huge. That's cool.
Yeah, so I've already been there a few times, but when I'd been there to other exhibitions, maybe maximum they had is like 4 halls open. But this time they had 16 of the 20 halls open. And I mean, we went and like we were there for 1 day. We managed to do 4 halls. So in theory, it was going to take us like 4 days to complete the whole fair. It's kind of like gunning for in some respects, I think, all the Hong Kong fairs. It stepped up its game. There's still a little bit of the local feeling to it, but not so much. And to this one, and and was like really impressed. I saw a lot of new things at this one, and the cost of the booths at this one were relatively cheap. We asked the people there, like, how much are you paying for the booths? And like I saw standard booth was like 16,000 yuan. So it's about, like maybe just under $2,500.
Yep.
For 4 days. So it's reasonably cheap. And then there was also 3 halls there that were run by 1688.
Oh yeah, the Chinese Alibaba.
If people don't know, it's the Chinese version of Alibaba. So it's Alibaba, but it's their Chinese website. It's 1688.com. And this was really good. And these guys, they only paid 13,000 yuan for their booths, but obviously they're paying Alibaba as well, some subscription fees and stuff like that. And I saw a lot of good stuff there. I saw a lot of interesting stuff there. I met a lot of nice people there. What I would say about that one was it was like not as well organized as Canton Fair. So the stuff was a bit random. You might be in the hall and it's a lot more random than Canton Fair was. And, some stuff, it at the moment, it couldn't replace Canton Fair. But of course, if they did it 3 times like Canton Fair did over a 5-week period, then it definitely could replace Canton Fair, because there wasn't any like clothes or shoes or anything like this there, or machinery or things that you might find at Canton Fair. It was more like electronics and gift stuff, and there was a lot of big brands there, which was a bit strange. Like Swarovski, what is that? I was like, asked, what you got to stand here? And they're like, oh, we're looking for distributors. Well, okay, so that was kind of interesting, but there was quite a lot of big brands. Philips were there, and obviously a lot of the big Chinese ones, but there was a lot of foreign ones as well. So all in all, that show I actually enjoyed more than Canton Fair, and it's only 30 minutes from my house. So
imagine that one develops.
It's kind of quite convenient. So that's exactly what I'm thinking. And also it's like, if that one develops really good, it's that convenient from Hong Kong that doesn't need to be exhibitions in Hong Kong anymore. Do all these Chinese companies really need to trawl all their stuff to Hong Kong? It's also a thinking,
I mean, plus it's right next to the airport, the Shenzhen airport, and then the Greater Bay Plan, the GBA, so it's definitely something to think about. And it makes sense, especially after COVID. It's a good chance for things to change, right? The new world, the new way. So it sounds like it's possible. Well, thanks, Chris. This turned out to be a great, it's actually quite a bit of insights here. So, so then do you know about the next one? Did they talk about the next fairs? Is it going to be again in the spring, or,
They didn't talk about it, but I mean, generally the gift show is the same as Canton Fair, so it's every 6 months. So I guess Canton Fair will try again in like April, May next year, along with this Shenzhen show. So
cool.
It'd be interesting to see how this Shenzhen one develops, because there wasn't any spare booths there. I wasn't walking around seeing empty booths. I did see some empty booths at Canton Fair, but I didn't see any in the Shenzhen one, which makes me think they have got capacity to go for like phase 2 or something like that,
It's very, very, very interesting. Awesome, Chris. Well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing with us today. What are some places people can find? Of course, you did do a little meetup this time. It wasn't nothing like, your previous meetups, but I think you also did have a little get together, and then at the Canton Fair, if I saw some photos.
Yeah, that's right. I think we had 12 people or 15 people, something like that, come. Just a few people, really. It was like back to one of the original venues, actually. And it's like, small. We just went for a meal together and then went to a bar and drunk a lot of shots. These people, mainly foreigners who live in China. So
yeah, these are the survivors. These are the veterans. I saw some really regular great people in there. I wish I was there. All right, Chris, thanks so much. So FBAforyou.com, right? That's the best place, or anything else, or for people to find you?
Yeah, that's it really. I'm not really making too much effort on FBAforyou.com at the moment because the main reason behind that was to run the networking events, and obviously because there's no foreigners in China, it's not really.
Yeah, exactly.
Not really huge events. We did do one in Canton. We had about 25 people there, but yeah. So yeah, FBAforyou.com, or you can find me on Facebook, CJ Davey, DAVEY. So, okay.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Thanks again for sharing. It's great to have you back All right. Thank you, Chris Davies, so much again for sharing on our show and to the community. As always, we all appreciate what you do here, Chris. And again, the show notes. Do you remember what the URL is, Aubrey? Sorry to put you on the spot. globalfromasia.com/ we'll double check, but that's the link for the URL. And you can find all our show notes, the video format of this and the audio format of this show, and the transcription and links. And we'll try our best to cite some of the previous shows and other things that we've discussed during the event, during this interview. How about you, Aubrey? I mean, you're in a tourist city. It's your hometown, right? Porto Galera. It's a local travel hotspot, right? In the Philippines. At least I've been there for travel a couple times. Do people? It's that you would call it a travel city, a tourist city?
Yes, we're a tourist destination actually, and I believe we're famous too in Asia and in other part of the world as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like I've been down there. Actually, a lot of his listeners know the Tropical MBA podcast. They did a meetup at Porto Galera in 2011 or 12. I can't remember. Dan and Ian and the crew, and I tagged along to that. That was not my first time to Porto Galera. Actually, I think my first time was 2009 or 2010, and actually some of the Shadowstone team took me there in 2009 or 10. I can't remember which one of those years. And I've been a few times since. It's a great little place, but you got to I think you can't drive. It's an island. You got to take a boat ferry, right? From Batangas port.
Yes. Yes.
And
you need to take the boat.
I was stuck in Porto Galera. I don't know if you knew this or not, for 2 extra days because the water was too choppy for the boat. They didn't let you take the boat because the water was too rough. Does that happen a lot, or was that just some?
Commonly it does when there's a typhoon, especially, or.
Yeah, so that's a pretty. I like, so you're right on the beaches. There's many beaches there, the White Beach, and there's a few different beaches. But it must have been hard because of COVID, right? I mean, I have some friends that have a hotel there, the Bad Lads Resorts, Sean, who I met at Tropical MBA meetup, and others. It must be very hard for the area, right? Because of the COVID and tourists.
Yes, the pandemic dramatically changes our lives here. Establishment shutdowns, loss of employment, and such that, and it's really devastating,
I know.
We're recovering for now, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, we're all recovering. I mean, that's the right word to use. We're recovering. The Canton Fair, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Aubrey, but it's kind of like one of the more famous trade shows for not just sellers, but B2B import-export people in China come here. And normally it was in spring and fall, April, usually, of course, a little bit of May and October, or a little bit of November every year. So a lot of events would happen. Like Chris, who is a guest, has his meetups. We would try to do our cross-border summit around the trade shows or meetups or other kind of cross-border matchmakers. A lot of our events were always around these trade shows, but now, like you said, just we're recovering from COVID and still dealing with COVID. So, China is still very closed, and so there's no, even for me to come from one city of China to that city, I was in Shenzhen to Guangzhou, as Chris talked about in our interview, you had to get a COVID test and you had to get paperwork, and, it's just not as open as everything is going to be just so much more difficult. I think tourism and travel will just, I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever go back to the way it was. I can't. Do you think, what do they say in your community there? I mean, do you think it's going to go back to normal, or will it always be different?
I believe it will be always, it will stay different, but I guess I hope that soon it will be better than this situation.
True. Yeah, I guess we can always, all we can do is hope. But it is, I think, recovering, like you said. I like that. But in the interview, Chris talked about was, it makes sense. I mean, not thinks, but could see another kind of trade show emerge as maybe the bigger one. There's in Shenzhen, the city we're in, there's starting to be a new kind of trade. I don't know if it's new, but it's a gift show. And he could see it, and I could also see it becoming more popular or easier to be bigger than the original Canton Fair, or at least maybe start to compete or become as famous maybe as the Canton Fair because of the new world, the new normal, the COVID, the travel, different restrictions. So it's interesting that he talked about that, and I could see that happening. But the world's going to continue to change. We're all going to change. I guess, there's that saying, I'll be right, like all that ever stays the same is change. The only thing that's the same is change. But man, it's just been extreme change for us and our community here at Global from Asia, and many of our community and people in the import export e-commerce space. The last couple of years have been just crazy. So, but it's great again to have you and the team help and our amazing community members. Like during that members call you had last week where I was in Temple, they're really supportive, and you're going to get to know more of them in the show. Maybe you and some of our members can interview guests in the future. What do you think, Aubrey?
Well, it's exciting, talking with them. I really love their ideas and they're open to communicate with us. So I'm really looking forward to interview them in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right, Aubrey, I think that's it for today's intro outro. Thanks as always for coming on with me and sharing with the listeners, and look forward to more upgrades and I don't want to say recovery, but recovery of even Global from Asia, or reinventing. We can get more members involved, more team members involved, more shows, more guests, more content, more fun stuff. So thanks for being here with us already. Thanks for listening, everyone, or watching, and see you in the show notes and see you in the next show. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.